So we'll go over the intro and things later, but let's just go back to what you just said about how a student is approaching something and how a teacher is approaching it. So let's start there.
Okay, so I see it on a level like it's like school. It is very much like school, where you can't really have a university lecturer teaching a 3-year-old. You can't, because they're just not going to get it. You have to go through the levels to get to the understanding of where the lecturer could actually, you would understand what they were talking about. And
Yeah.
our spiritual life is very much like that, where I know myself, I read so many books as a teenager, and I know there was lots of things from those books that it felt good. Like I would read it and I thought, yeah, I kind of relate to that. So I took it on as a belief.
Yeah.
And when I first started in my 20s, I was kind of not teaching, I was more doing readings then with that belief. It wasn't particularly mine. And then I went to meditation classes, and the meditation teacher, she was teaching us her belief. So I was also taking on part of what she believed as a truth. Like,
Yeah.
so it becomes like, I really believe that myself. So it becomes a truth to me. And it wasn't until after I went through my near death experience and I actually got to experience what it is really like. I came back and I thought, I I wasn't always, it was good because I was teaching from a belief of others and a belief that felt right for me. But now I feel like I don't want to teach somebody so that they take on my beliefs, if that makes sense.
Yes. I think that's
I just want
great.
to, I just want to leave it open so you form your own beliefs, what you believe.
I love it.
Yeah, sort of like a cleansing of a house, right? Let's say back when I was in my 20s and somebody said, "Oh, I have a spirit in my home. Can you rid that spirit?" Back in my 20s, I would have believed that there was some kind of energy in that house that had to be moved, or got rid of. So I would have gone in with my sage stick and done a clearing for them. That's how I felt like I was doing the right thing. I felt like that was a belief that I had. Now I wouldn't, I don't even see any kind of energy being stuck anywhere. No one gets stuck. I've seen what it's like, and nothing is stuck. There is so much help on the other side to move us, welcome us home. It's impossible for somebody to get stuck. Energy is energy. It just can't get stuck.
It totally makes sense too. It does. How could it get stuck? How would something be that intelligent but forget that part?
Yes,
And
exactly.
that's what I tell people that have those questions when I'm doing readings. It's like,
Yeah,
how would you? It does not make any sense that there's this
yeah,
intelligence that forgets these major details
exactly.
that doesn't get you safely over there, or that you remain, in some strange place.
Yeah,
But that brings us to a great point, and which is about NDEs, which you have experienced, and I would love to hear about your experience. And I know that everyone, or it seems to me, the people that I've spoken to have different experiences with NDEs. And that makes sense to me also, being that we're all very different people.
yeah.
But there does seem to be this kind of underlying theme
Hmm.
about love,
Yes,
about acceptance,
yes,
and realizations that people might not have had before having the experience, or understanding it in a different way. To your point, being 20, not understanding, doing the best you thought you were doing, but then seeing something in a very, very different way. I know that's big, that's a
hmm.
huge topic, but I would love to get your thoughts and how that applies to the experience that you had with your
Yeah.
NDE.
Would you like me to explain my actual NDE, what I went through?
Yeah, let's do that so people really understand what that was for you and
Yeah.
how this became to be. Yeah.
Well, I always wanted one to start with because I was very envious that.
Yes, I think we all are, right?
Yeah, my auntie, she had one, and she doesn't do any kind of work like this or anything, but she had one, and she used to tell me the story, and I'll be like, oh, I really want one of my own. I know it's it's like I want to die. You have to die to be able to have one.
Yeah.
But this only happened for me in 2020, so it was only recently, and I had an anaphylaxis reaction to taking a Disprin, which I didn't realize I was highly allergic to it. So it shut my breathing down. That was my reasoning for getting rushed to the hospital, and actually leaving my body. I remember just being out of my body. And it's not like I looked at myself and said, oh, I'm dead. There was not that realization. It was just like normal. It felt very, very normal to just be out of the body, but still conscious.
Yeah.
And obviously I didn't look down and see a body, like a soul, or it was just like I was just particles of a light. And I could move everywhere, and I could know everything. The knowledge, you can just know everything. And my energy moved next to the doctor that was treating my physical body. And I knew everything about him. I knew he was married. I knew he had children. I knew why he became a doctor. I just knew him. And I moved to the nurse, and the same thing happened. I knew everything about the nurse. I knew her problems. I knew how she felt, why she was at work that day. Like I knew, but it's like it all comes all at once, but it's not overwhelming. It's a very, very natural flow. It's telepathy, but you can absorb an incredible amount of information all at one time.
Yeah.
Then I moved to a hallway, and I didn't see a light or a tunnel, but I did go down a long hallway, and there was a spiritual being that came towards me, and I knew he was a male, and I knew I could trust him. And it was at this point I wasn't really. It all just felt right. I didn't feel the intense love or anything at that. It was more a curiosity at that point. I followed him down this hallway, and it's like you're just floating down in this space. And I looked over to my left, and I saw everybody who I had known in this lifetime that had passed away. So my mum was there, my grandparents were there, even a school teacher from my primary school was there. Every person that had any kind of impact in this lifetime was there. And that's when I started this feeling of love and overwhelming love. And I was so excited. I was so happy to see them all. And I wanted to rush over there and have a reunion. And this guide said to me, no. That was just, no, you can't. You're not meant to go there. So I could just see them, but I couldn't interact with them. And they don't look like how you remember them on Earth. They're just energy, but you know who they are. You know what impact they had on your life, what purpose they had in your life. And it's like you are so grateful that you got to interact with them in life. It's like a blessing that they were part of your journey and you were part of their journey. So then I kept going with this guide I call it the room of knowledge. I don't know. It's just the name that I've given it, because it felt like a library of sorts where every single living existence has a record. So your existence today of Kira there is a whole record of the personality you created, the lessons that you've gone through, the interactions you've had with others. The whole lot is all contained in this record. So even if when your soul is finished in this body and it comes back in the future in another body, you still have a record of this existence. It's there. It's always there to be tapped into. Doesn't matter if we're 5,000 years in the future, we can still tap into the record of this existence.
Wow.
And it's kind of like I could put my hand on a book about a person and know everything about them. Again, that download comes where you know absolutely everything about everybody. And it's not a judgment though. It's just knowledge. It's just that's all it is, just knowledge. No judging, no having to fix it. It's just knowledge. Then I turned around, I came back down this passageway. And while I was coming back down the hallway to find my body, excuse me, in that split moment, I've got 5 sons in this lifetime, and I could feel the emotion and thought of my 5 sons exactly the same time. It's not like I chose the eldest son and focused on him and then the youngest. No, all 5, I could access their thought and their emotion, what their earthly body was feeling, all at the same time. And then again, it's like that. It's like you're feeling their frequency. So if they're worried, they're sending out this frequency, and you, as a energy form, you can feel that. So you know what they're feeling. And then I came back to my body, and I saw my physical body laying on the bed, and then my spiritual body went just above it. I wasn't fully in, I was hovering above, but I was laying down, and this is so cool. I could see the doctors and the nurses working on my physical. They were putting tubes down my mouth, and they were putting like stuff in my veins. And just above, I could see the spiritual world working on my body, but they were using color frequency.
Yeah.
And I could see both worlds at exactly the same time. The colors are like so vivid. I can't even explain to somebody what the colors. I can just say 2,000 times more vivid than what our physical eyes can see. And they realigned my chakra points with these colors, and I could just feel the red coming in and the yellow coming in, and it lined it all up. And then I heard a spiritual voice say, "She can go back now." And I found myself in my body. The moment I hit my body, I just opened my eyes, and I heard a nurse calling my name. And I looked at her and I said, "Oh, did you see all the colors?" And she's like, no. I think, nurses think, you're having a hallucination or something. But I said, "Oh, the colors are amazing." And then I kind of felt, I just wanted to process it all, because it was the love that it's like being hugged with love and not let go. It's just this, and it's warm, and we can have love here. I've given birth to a child that, that euphoric moment of love, or you see an animal and you're holding an animal and you have that love, but it's nothing like that over there. It's even greater. It's just so beautiful. So
That's incredible. I think that actually speaks to a lot of things, like this sort of idea of consciousness, right? That it's not, gosh, it's so hard to explain, but I really feel that way about the spirit world, that when you're being impressed by the spirit world, it's a consciousness, and
Yes.
they can impress anything on that consciousness that your mind will allow you to impress. I think that we're limited by our mind.
Yep.
And that's what gets in the way as a medium, and gets in the way as a psychic, actually, is our limitations there.
Yes.
And so for me, it's all about trying to get past the limitation of the mind, and how does one do that? But it does also speak to that consciousness of all of it being available at one time. It also speaks to the idea, which I very much agree with, that your aura, or the energy, or whatever you would like to call it, has all of the information within it. So if you're near the doctor, you're near the nurse, you have access to that information. And when you pass, it's just all completely clear and available, but it's also available now on I mean, obviously not as clear, I would
Yeah.
imagine, but there is access that we have to it. So with that, what have you coming back, knowing what you know now, how has that changed your life, your
Hmm.
readings,
Yep.
your consciousness? I'm sure it's changed so many things on so many levels, but
It's I have just an acceptance
yeah.
for if I'm watching somebody who wishes to destroy their life with some kind of toxic traits, I in the past would have gone over and beyond to try to help them, to try to, you know, fix them. Now I'm still there, but I have a total acceptance of that's their journey. It's even though we are all connected and we are all one and we all come from the same energy field, I see it more like, well, that's just your journey. And I will step back. And I also see like with guides, so our spiritual entities that will help us, we don't always listen to them. You know, we
Oh,
have free will and we go off and do, but they don't stop loving us.
no,
They
no.
don't stop. They still love. We can go off and make the biggest mistake ever and then come back and say, look, I need help now. Whereas they were helping us in the first place and we weren't listening. And so I feel very much like that now with people around me. I'm more like, well, I'm here to help, but if you want to go off on your own journey and you want to learn your own way, I just accept. It's an incredible amount of acceptance now to just let things be. It's
Yeah.
kind of like I really understand the ego and the higher self. And the ego always used to, my human ego wanted to take control. I was quite a controlling person. I needed to control my surroundings. Now I don't. That's all gone. It's
Yeah.
very clear what our human brain, all that programming that's in there. And when you can get past that, and then it's just acceptance, love, and compassion. That's basically it.
Do you think that speaking to it's their journey, that a person is coming in, we hear things like soul contract. What do you
Yep.
think about that? Yeah.
I do believe there is soul contract.
Yeah.
Yes. And see, when I hear the word, when somebody says, what is my life purpose?
Mm-hmm.
I feel
Common
like
question, by the way. To those of you listening, this is a very common question that a psychic is getting.
I feel like everything has a purpose. Like the whole lot is a purpose.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
not one thing.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly. It's not a question that we can say, oh, you're supposed to do this thing, because
yeah.
it can't be that way.
No,
Doesn't make any sense. It's
the
too one
whole
dimensional.
lot has a purpose. Every single, even an argument you have, a change in career, every single thing has a purpose to your growth.
Yeah.
That's what we're here for, the growth, the
Yeah.
wisdom, the growth.
It seems to me that when people are asking that question, it really, I mean, I feel like there's so many underlying questions that we're getting as psychics. We're getting the question, what should I do with my career, my money, my love, these things? But really, the underlying question, especially what's my purpose, is I don't feel that I matter
Yeah.
on some level, or I don't feel that I'm making an impact. And the difficulty I have with that question is how I can't help you feel like you matter. So the real root of this is, how can you find things that you enjoy that bring your soul to
Yes.
light, like that bring
Yes.
you into excitement, because from there you will have a reason, and you
Yeah.
won't care what this question wouldn't even be there, wouldn't exist without that feeling,
And
right?
the underlying thing is we are all deep, 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 right down to the core, wanting to be of service to our fellow human being. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter if you're a cleaner. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't matter if you're a CEO of a company. It doesn't matter what job you do. If you are providing some kind of service to your fellow human being, you can feel fulfillment within yourself.
Yeah. And we also have aspects of our personality that obviously I really believe, especially, within the colors of us, that would be better for us,
Oh yeah,
I
yeah,
right, that
yeah,
we're not all supposed to be up on a stage or what have you.
yeah,
um but and then I also see that when people are not listening to that and they're driven by more material gains, that they do have these sort of limitations or deep depressions where they feel
yeah,
trapped, and in a
yeah,
sense they are trapped because they're not expressing the identity of who they truly are as a soul.
yeah.
So, right, I think in a way, but maybe that's their learning is,
That's
yes,
it.
you did it, you made the money, and there we go. Now let's go be an artist.
Yeah,
Let's go, well, let's go run trips where we're doing hikes in Hawaii. I don't know, but it's got to be something different.
yeah,
Um, so, and on the subject of answering psychic questions, which is your profession, um, what else do you feel like you came back after that NDE understanding your psychic connection better, or that you had more of it? That seems to be a common thing that people are talking about as well. When they're coming back and they're like, "Oh, I'm just psychic now." But
yeah. I
I
was
know
really
you were
before. Yeah.
before. So,
What has changed in the way when I'm connecting with somebody who's passed over? Before, when I was doing a reading, and I'll say I was connecting with somebody's, say a wife had lost her husband, right? And I was connecting with the husband. Before, I would be picking up things like I would see maybe a truck around him and a certain job that he was doing, and then he played the guitar, and you went on a holiday to this place, and I would see specific details like that, mainly to clarify to the person that I had the right person. That was for them to say, oh yeah, she's got my husband, and they feel a comfort to know that if she's being able to get that information, and only, I'm telling her stuff that only he would know, it's giving them proof that you can connect with them. But since, and now when I do a reading, it's all about, it's all about their emotions. The person that died, I'm getting more information from the person that died about how they learnt from that person, like what they
mm,
grew, how they grew themselves through being married to that person. It's got nothing to do with I played the guitar or I drove a truck. It's now like, oh, the time that you pushed me into taking that job, and you pushed me out of my comfort zone, and the gratitude I have for you for always being there for me. And it's more about their relationship, and the emotions and the growth that they got from one another in the relationship. So my readings have changed very much more. Or let's say somebody had difficulties with a parent growing up. They didn't really get along. The parent is now so aware of neglecting that child at the age of 6, and knowing and picking out little things like, I know you came to me for help, but as an adult, I was so busy working on my own problems, I didn't notice that you needed that at that time. And it's healing on a whole different level.
which is, in my mind, what mediumship is about.
Mm,
Healing,
yeah,
right? Love and
yeah,
healing.
yeah,
And I wonder if, I mean, that also makes sense given what you had said before, but do you think that some of this has to do also with the way that you were trained, touching back on that as
absolutely,
well? Because
absolutely.
I think, I mean, I've obviously been trained with mediumship as well, and there's so much of an emphasis that's put on that, on the evidence, which is what
Yes,
you were talking about, right? So the
yep,
cars, the guitars, and things like that, that's the physical evidence and the
yep,
material aspect. And when you're trained in that way, it's almost like your mind is looking, and
yep,
what I believe with mediumship is that because you've been trained that way, you're trained your mind to look there.
yep,
But um, really, mediumship, there's so many aspects of it that we could touch into. And to me, it is, and I want to be always the better medium that's about the healing of the person, and
yes,
that I think it's both sides. It's that spiritual healing, but it's coming from the spirit, and their
Yep.
spirit is healing with the person that you're reading
Yes.
for. And
Yes.
I think that's another level of mediumship, which is so needed,
Yes.
and it also takes your ego out of it, because it's
Yes.
not about, oh, look how great I am. I got the phone number of this person or whatever,
Yeah.
which is,
Yeah.
it's just showmanship, really,
Yes.
but it doesn't need to be like that. It can
No.
very much be, this is about healing, and this is about what this person really needs to say, and the reflections, right? And the aspects of what their life was really about.
Yeah.
That's incredible, because it's possible. And I wish, do you think that there's a way that a person could learn how to do mediumship like that had they not had that experience? How does one teach that? How does one learn something like this?
Uh, I I believe it's also age and experience, and also it does. I don't know that you have to fully go through a near death experience, but some kind of experience that wakes up
Mm-hmm.
the consciousness. And I've just seen just recently. I knew a guy that had gone through a horrible marriage break. His wife just left him, and he was absolutely devastated. But he decided to turn it around, to not focus on what happened, but to really understand himself. And within 12 months, just in 12 months, by doing meditations for himself and journaling his thoughts, and really understanding why he was so dependent on that partner. Because he used to say to me, you can't be happy on your own. You have to have somebody. That was his belief. And in that 12 months, he's now got to himself to a point of, he just goes, I get it. I
Mm-hmm.
get it. He
Yeah.
goes, I'm just content. And if another relationship doesn't work, that's okay. I'm content with who I am.
Yeah.
So he's done that work himself. And people can get to a certain level of when they really understand themselves. So I do believe that, like, people that are already working in this field can get to that level. It just depends on, I think something just triggers them to get to that, just to look at it differently, to let go of programmed thoughts that are already in the brain. But for me, it was the actual feeling of what it's like to be on the other side. That was, because I can't explain it. It's so hard to put into words what that felt like.
I don't think anybody could explain that.
Yeah.
It doesn't make, it's not a material thing, and
No.
it's so beyond, and it's so everything at one time, and there is no time, and it's
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
vast,
I say, like, we have air around us all the time, but you don't look at it.
Right.
You don't see the
Right.
air, but it's there.
Yeah.
Even if you turn a light on and the light rays are coming in, they illuminate the room. You don't see the light rays. It's like it's there, but you don't see it. That's what it feels like when your consciousness. It's still. I felt everybody that was still alive on Earth. I came back and I'm like, we don't die. We don't die.
Absolutely
We
not.
just we move. That's it.
Yeah, we do. And it is a consciousness of knowing that that's there, and not
Yeah.
always, aware, possibly. I wonder if, I feel like there are times in my life that I've been very fearful of, like, that I was just going to survive, or that I would make it, or things like that. And I wonder if that idea of trust and faith is really something that is to be believed in after you have experienced something like you have. Seems like that seems to be a something that people have talked about, that your trust and your faith is imperative. What do you think of that?
Oh, well, I feel like because we get programmed, we watch movies. We have parents that drum information into us. You go to school, and that you get, so it creates all this. Your brain, your physical brain, is creating. That's where the fear is.
Yeah.
But the like, I never had any fear whatsoever. It just wasn't there. It doesn't exist. Fear does not exist on the other side. But in saying that, I have a very close friend that went through an operation, and she left her body, but she went through something absolutely horrible. She went
Mm.
through one of those experiences where she thought all the nurses were out to kill her. It was like The whole
Hmm.
experience was horrid, um, on a very, 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 very low frequency. She didn't kind of go to the, so I don't, and I know that in her physical life, she has a huge problem with alcohol. So she has a lot of toxicity in her body, and her liver was malfunctioning. That's why she was in the hospital. So I kind of feel like, depending on also how we feel about ourselves. So
Yeah.
she's somebody that has extremely low self-esteem, no self-worth, destroys her physical body all the time as a punishment, then
Hmm.
goes through something like that experience, and it wasn't a nice experience. Because I kind of feel like whatever your energy is in your physical body, you can still find that same energy out of it.
Yeah.
You go into that lower dimension.
Yeah.
Had she had lots of self-love, she would have, I think she would have had a totally different experience.
Oh, I've never heard anything like that. That's so interesting.
So I kind of feel like the fear can still play in that.
Well, I suppose if it's all, I mean, if we're looking at frequencies and color is a frequency and a light and an energy, and if we're working with that, which we are, then if we don't surpass that or leave that frequency, if
Hmm,
we're so embedded in it, I suppose we wouldn't have an experience like that until we fully
yeah, because the
crossed
level
over.
that you're working on, you see everything from a place of love. So if you were going to see some kind of energy coming into your room, it would be light. It would be
Yeah.
light. But this woman, when she lays in bed at night time, she sees dark shadows across, because her body is just full of toxic and anger, and her whole body is full of low emotions. So she experiences that still. I think it's kind of like you line up to what your frequency is. It kind of matches it.
Which actually goes along the lines of law of attraction, doesn't it?
Mm,
Because if we think of law of attraction and what is said about the law of attraction, it would go within the same lines. You're creating your own
yeah,
life, your own universe, and it's following that. I don't know that I always agree with that, but in a sense, it would be something like that, I suppose.
I'm not a full I'm not a full believer of the teachings of the law of attraction. I have this theory, which may offend people, but
It's all right.
the people that teach the law of attraction are the only people that make money from it.
The people that teach it are the only ones. Yeah.
They're,
Yeah.
they're, they're selling an idea.
Yes.
And
They
there's
are.
no proof. They're selling an idea. And I quite often, if you watch a lot of people that are teaching it, if you question them and say it's not working for me, they will gaslight you and say you're the problem. You're the one with the
Yeah.
block.
Yeah.
You're the one who you can't get past it. You're the one with the negative. They will never ever say it doesn't work for everybody.
Right. And how could the same, my problem is with any teaching is you can't have the same teaching for everyone. There's no way that
Exactly
you
right.
can say this one thing works for everything. And I've had a real opinion about law of attraction teachers as well, because I just can't get on board with it. I just do not agree with some of the ways that they're teaching, such as
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
And there's no, if we're looking at World War II, any war really, then it's about their energy or their terrible life circumstances. And it just, that does not make any sense to me. It just,
no.
that there's no way I can understand that,
And
you know?
don't put it in the mind of somebody else that you can have anything you want.
Hmm.
Because there's people out there that would really like a child and can't have a child, or there's people
That's
out there that just are dying of cancer and they want their life back, and it's not going to go that way. I feel like it's dangerous to say you can have anything you want, but I do believe in the frequency of the way that you feel about yourself is what you attract around you.
yeah. And how do you think that's different? Like, let's actually break that down. How do you think that's different from law of attraction? Like
So
the frequency in your mind. I mean, this is
so
your
if I
experience.
I feel like my soul has different things it wants to experience while it's here. And if I'm going with the if I'm going with the flow, then I'm going to allow my soul to go through that. But it might be something my ego does not like.
Yeah. Right. Interesting. Mm-hmm.
So my soul might decide, I really want to understand what it feels like to be in a narcissistic relationship. I want to feel that. I want to understand what it's like from their point of view. I want to understand how it hurts the person, the empath. I want to understand it all. So I'll go into that experience and then it all falls apart. And my soul is so blessed that I got to really understand it and grow within myself and understand where I could have been a better, like had boundaries and things like that. But my ego is sitting there going, why did that happen to me? Like, why
Yeah.
was that's not fair,
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I see that a lot with the readings that I do too. A lot of questions about um relationships and what it's if it's going to work out and why didn't it work out and will they come back to me and things like that, and
Yeah.
not understanding that the depth of the knowledge. The
Yes.
reason I'm in mediumship and is because of a divorce, because of
Yeah.
a terrible, horrible experience that I would never take back.
Yeah.
Because it was so painful that I had to become a different person. I mean, I
That's
learned,
exactly right.
right? So I became a kinder person, to be
Yeah.
honest. Yeah. And I wouldn't take that back. I wouldn't do it again, but I wouldn't take it back. I don't want to do
But
it
it
again.
creates, yeah, it creates the person you are today. And without that, you don't become. So your soul will be so blessed to understand the whole experience, and not just your experience, but everyone around you that was impacted on that experience.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just the ego. The ego is hurt because the ego always wants to feel good.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I wanted to talk to you a little bit about your readings. I know, as we talked about before, you're a professional psychic medium, right? Or is it just psychic that you
I
do?
just say psychic.
Yeah.
I'm more clairvoyant. I love to do automatic writing.
Yeah.
So I love to do what I call cold readings. So
Mhm.
I don't
Yeah.
have somebody sitting in front of me. If somebody's sitting in front of me, I am so distracted by that.
Me too.
I'm like, if they're looking at me, I've got something going on in my head, and if they're nodding or if they're,
Yeah.
I'm like, no, I don't just. So
Yeah.
I prefer to write. I write. It flow. Well, I actually type. I used to before the internet. I used to write them all out with my hand, and
Oh,
now I type them all out, and I just close my eyes and it just comes through. This information comes through. So I have got to totally trust
yeah.
that what I'm typing is relevant to that person because I don't know anything about them. And
Hmm.
they're not sitting there nodding their head back at me. I'm just trusting that this is everything they need to hear.
It's
And
this whole what we do is all about trust, isn't it? And faith,
yeah,
because we never know what the person is going to say back, right? But go ahead. I'm sorry I interrupted
and
you
that
about
they
that.
can read it. Sometimes they will read it and it doesn't. Sometimes they'll go, some bits really resonate, and then other bits they reject it. They're like, no, that can't happen. Every single time they come back a year or 2 years later and they'll go, oh, that reading you did for me, that actually did unfold like that, but I couldn't see it at the time. They always say, I couldn't see it at the time.
And that's a really common thing with psychics and readings is but people, that's the reason they're there, is they can't see it at this
Yes,
time,
yes,
right? That's why you've come to the reading, is that you
yeah,
cannot see this and you don't
yes,
know how to see this.
yes,
And do you feel that I don't like to see I don't like to see people either. I prefer to type or send a
yep,
voicemail back. I also don't like to do that with my mediumship. I prefer to just have them on the phone. I don't want to know what they look like. I don't
yep,
want to be distracted by the nods. I don't want any information at all.
yep,
And I know that not everybody thinks that's good. They're like, well, I want you to be on Zoom with me. And I will, but I really don't I don't like it at all because of
Yeah.
that reason, because to me, I don't want to know anything about you, and it will probably be better if I don't,
Yeah.
because
I
I mean,
think when they want to talk to you, they want therapy. They don't want, it's more that they want to
yeah,
talk with somebody and unload some problems rather than just getting a reading and having to work it out themselves.
absolutely. That's a
Yeah.
really common thing as well. And so I know I've had a reading with you before, but let's talk to everyone that's going to listen to this. So you sit down and you have a specific question and you answer those questions.
I
Which
do.
one? Yeah.
People can ask me a question or they can just leave it open. So if I'm doing a question one, they're quite specific. Well, sometimes
Yeah.
they'll just say, sometimes people give me a lot of detail, which I actually really enjoy because that
Yeah.
really gets me into the whole energy of a situation.
Absolutely.
Like they might say, look, I really want to move at the moment, but the place I want to move to won't allow pets, and I have a pet. Do you think that's going to work out? Are the people going to accept that I can take my pets, or am I going to find another place? A real detailed question like that. So in my mind, it's like a picture, and
Hmm.
I can see, and I get a feeling like, no, you won't be going there, but there is another opportunity going to come up for you, or you're just meant to stay where you are. And I get people say to me, look, I'm thinking of giving away this particular job. Will I be okay financially? And it's more like a feeling in my body, a reaction where I go, you got free will, but if you choose that path, you're going to find it difficult financially because nothing will replace that money.
Hmm.
So it's more like you're giving them an option. You're not planting a seed in their head. You're giving them options, but so they can still use their free will. And most of them know their answer anyway.
Yeah.
They just want you to help clarify what they're feeling
What they
themselves.
already know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which it kind of seems to. And I tell my students, if we're doing it right, people will say, yeah, I kind of knew that, or that feels right to me,
Yep. Yep.
and I also say to people getting readings, if it feels really wrong, then take
Yeah.
that is really wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
If it
Your body
feels,
speaks to you. Yeah. Yeah.
we have to understand that not every psychic is for us. And we also need to understand not every psychic is actually ethical, and not every psychic is psychic.
Yeah.
I mean, they may be. I mean, I think everyone is psychic, but I think a lot of people have trained their egos versus their
Yeah.
actual abilities. And that's a real danger I see with this industry.
Yeah.
Which brings me to the next subject is, what do you think about this industry? I feel, I'll tell you mine and then you can tell me
Mm.
what you think about it. I feel like, having taken classes from a lot of people and done this for many years, I feel that some of the ways that are being taught is, like I said before, very ego based on the teacher themselves. So you never really learn that much. But it also seems to be very based in rituals, or things that make it actually more complicated than it is, in my mind.
Yeah.
I feel that it could be so much easier, and that there needs to be that sort of teaching where it's not so complicated. What do
Yeah.
you think about? I don't know if you teach, but what do you think about that subject?
So I I think the internet has changed it all because I was doing this work back in the 1980s,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
learnt from a lady who was a self-taught. She just was born with a natural ability,
Hmm.
and she was self-taught, and I trusted her. And so I learnt from her, and she would hold meditation. So it's basically, she started off just holding meditation classes, and she was amazing at just off the cuff talking through a guided meditation. She allowed, and it was always a visual, like she had a purpose for the path you were going on. And then when we came out of the meditation, we would talk about what we saw. That's how we were developing our own abilities. So there was no internet influence back then.
Yeah.
So it was
Yeah.
easier. But the moment internet started and everybody got on board, and now I see a lot of people copying
Mm-hmm.
This thing about chat, sometimes when they get on there and they say they're channeling and they close their eyes,
Mm-hmm.
I can just go, no,
Yeah.
you're not.
Yeah.
You're not
I,
channeling. You're just sharing what you believe.
yep.
And then I saw a guy on TikTok. He had thousands and thousands of followers, and he said he was the greatest psychic in Australia. And I'm like, I've never heard of you, but anyway.
You can say anything you want, can't
Yeah,
you?
because he
Right?
labeled himself as that, he had
Sure.
lots of followers, right?
Of course.
Um, he would pull a card, he was using tarot cards, and he pulled a card out and he would say, I don't know, it's the Two of Cups.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like you're going through a separation. You've been through a separation and you're not sure whether you want this person back or whether to keep moving away from them. It was so generic.
Mm-hmm.
But there was 2,500 comments saying, you've just said my life. And it just
Yeah.
goes to show the people that they didn't care who he was. They only cared that someone understood that they were going through that.
Yes.
But it was
Yes.
generic. It was anybody could say what he was saying. But he had a huge following because I don't think they're not looking for that unique psychic. They were just looking for somebody that could clarify. That's how I feel at the moment. I'm going through that. You're acknowledging that I'm going through that. They also don't feel like people that would be ready to see somebody like yourself. They're not ready for the deep inner work that they have to do. They just want that surface level reading, or somebody just
Yeah.
give me a quick answer.
Right. And I think I feel like my psychic readings need a warning, and so do yours, which is this is going to go deep and it's going to ask you some questions about yourself. I'm not just going to say yes or no to you.
Yeah.
I'm going
Don't you
to,
feel like you will only attract the people that are ready for that?
yeah, I hope to. I hope so.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't always hear back from, right. I don't know. I don't always, I'm writing them their response and I don't always hear back from them. I mean, my mediumship is obviously not in written form. I'm talking to them.
Yeah.
But when I think of mediumship, I think that there needs to be another level. And I hope, and that's what I'm looking to perform at that level, which
Yeah.
is clear evidence that your loved one is still here,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
obviously they are. And it needs to be the higher level of mediumship, which I don't, sadly, it's not that hard to be up here because
Yeah.
there's so many down here. There's
Mm.
so many saying, your dad loves you, he's with you, he's
Yeah.
proud of you. Like that literally is not
The
information
generic stuff.
that's not
Yeah.
evidence. It
Yeah.
can be within a message, but it needs to be backed by actual evidence,
Yeah.
like hard, cold evidence.
Yeah.
So it's frustrating to me, but again, it also encourages me to move into a higher level and continue to always search for that so that people can get healing
Yeah.
and
Well,
be
I kind of feel
educated.
I'm really cool now with just leaving those. They used to
Yeah.
frustrate me before. I used to think, oh, how have you got 250,000 followers on YouTube when you're flipping cards up and just saying your interpretation of the card? Whereas
Hmm.
another psychic is going so deep and so
Yeah.
healing into your and clearing stuff away for you in the reading. The reading is actually clearing stuff for you.
Hmm.
And yet those people have a small following. Um, and it used to bother me. And now I just totally see that, as I said before, a university lecturer can't teach a 3-year-old what they know, but there's only a certain amount of people that can understand that lecturer, that push themselves to that height. So when you're a high working medium, you're going to get less people,
Hmm.
not more people.
And I agree. I'm fine with that, and I do think there's a bit of showmanship there as
Yeah,
well. And if you are a medium or a psychic that's doing platform readings, which I do also, you do need to be good. You do need to have a nice
mm,
presence about you, which, there's that as well. So there is that piece that is needed if that's what you're going to do with
yeah,
your profession. But that's different than the ego that I'm seeing so
yeah.
much of, like that it's really just about that person wanting the attention, which
But
is
they don't
limited.
last either.
I hope not.
Don't last. They don't
To
last.
be
I always
honest,
fall away. I'm 62 years old and I've been watching this for
you've
a
seen
really
it.
long time. I've seen them come and I've seen them go. And they're like one hit wonders with a soul. They come and they
Yeah.
go, but the people that put in the work, they stay. And they're
Yeah.
always,
Yeah. Well, it can be quite exhausting, the job itself. I have
yeah,
to be very careful. I've noticed I've gotten myself into trouble with my energy and
yeah,
understanding myself and getting clear on what it is I need to do to take care of that. I
yeah,
didn't really ever believe that before. And then I started doing this and I was
yeah,
like, oh my gosh, sick for an entire month. This means
yep,
I need to do something differently. This is not okay.
yep,
So you learn so much with this job.
yes.
So, Vicky, this has been so great. I know I could talk to you for hours about this, but to end this, I wanted to ask, tell us where we can get a hold of you if somebody does want a reading or they want to
Yep.
interview you for their own podcast.
Yeah.
Where do they get a hold of you?
Well, I have a website which is www.vickybuttonspsychic.com. My Vicky has got an I on the end because some people put a Y. And I have my own YouTube channel, which is also vickybuttonspsychic.com. Oh, sorry, just Vicky Button Psychic. And that's also the name I use with Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok.
Perfect.
And I do have a members area. I do teach and I have a members area. I don't do a subscription or anything like that. It's a once off, I just charge once off $50. And that gets them access to, I have a members area that's full of everything I learned from the beginning, how I learned to read auras, how I learned to do reflexology even, and how everything, all it's kind of like a stage of my own life of how I've progressed and how I see things now. So they're all video tutorials. And I do these practices with, I hide something in my house and then
Mhm.
they have to use their remote viewing to
Mhm.
figure out where I've hidden it, and then I reveal it, and it's so much fun. The members, they're like, some, it's in the bathroom, it's in the bathroom, and it'll be on my walking machine, it's nowhere near. But I encourage them, like, keep practicing because it's practice. You have to
Yeah,
practice.
it's a
Yeah,
muscle. You have to
yeah,
use the muscle and you have to
yeah.
learn how your muscle works because I just think again, I can't say this enough. There is not one size fits all with psychic.
No,
It
yeah,
just we can't be that way. The way I use my psychic abilities is I'm sure very different than
yeah,
yours, and
yeah,
it needs to be that way,
yeah.
you know.
So
So
yeah,
good.
that's what I do. And I get readings back. I'm not somebody that likes to make people wait because once they've contacted me, I like to get it back within 2 to 3 days because I feel like their energies. And
Yeah.
if they, I don't know, do you find this when somebody's going to buy a reading to connect with the past loved one, their loved one is in the house before they've contacted you?
Yes, frequently. Or I'll be walking my dogs and something will pop into my
Yeah,
head yeah, like a nickname or something
yeah,
strange. Like, what's that about? Or if I'm going to do gallery readings and then that person comes through with the gallery
yeah,
reading. And that's so, yeah.
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 I always feel like spirits here 2 or 3 days before the person actually finds you for a reading.
Well, I don't you think, well, we talked about that drop of consciousness, like it's
Yeah,
all in consciousness and that person's already been thinking about it. So the spirit
yeah,
world is like, well, they're coming to you in
they're
3 days,
coming.
you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, this is so fun. Here, let me end this and thank you so much.